Trapped Games, Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess. Originally released for the GameCube and as a launch title for the Wii, Twilight Princess would later receive an HD remaster on the Wii U. However, strangely, it remains one of the only Zelda titles not available on the Switch. Twilight Princess is in the classic vein of Zelda, as in, you go through a series of dungeons. In each dungeon, you find a new item, which is usually key to beating that dungeon and the boss therein, generally. Before, of course, going toe-to-toe with the final boss and saving the day. And while that is all true in the broad strokes, there are many details here that are different from other Zelda games. Firstly, we have a fairly long prologue here, which shows us what life is like for Link living in a rural part of Hyrule, showing us that really he was no one special, just a guy getting by doing various odd jobs in his village. He even seems to have some interest in a local girl. But of course, simple life in a village can't last. We wouldn't have a game if it did. So bad things start happening. Link gets turned into a wolf and finds himself in a dungeon. And over the course of the game, you'll end up being a wolf several times. You can't do very much as a wolf, but there's certain things you need to do as a wolf. But here in the dungeon, we meet our sidekick for the game, Midna, who, in an unusual twist for a Zelda sidekick, isn't just a constant annoyance. Occasionally, she is actually funny. Though she is still often annoying, as she wouldn't be a Zelda sidekick otherwise. But anyway, it turns out that this dungeon is in fact the dungeon under Hyrule Castle. You have to work your way out, and then up the castle, so you can meet and have one of your very few interactions with Princess Zelda, who is just barely a presence in this game. And there is absolutely no implied romance or spark between her and Link this time around. Which, I mean, realistically, she's a princess, and he's a guy from a poor village. There's not going to be a love connection between those two. But you end up back in your village at this point, which is shrouded in darkness. You have to get yourself a sword and a shield, and break the darkness over the town. Once you do, Link gets a snazzy new outfit that looks exactly like what you would expect Link's outfit to look like, and the game proper starts. From here things progress pretty much as you would expect in a Zelda game, going from your various dungeons, collecting your various tools. It is broken up a little here when you have to do things in your wolf form from time to time, but by the end you'll have a rather interesting cross-section of items, some of which are unique to this title, and this game actually managed to pull off something of a twist, though I won't spoil it here. This incarnation of Zelda also had a very large world. Not quite as large as modern Zeldas, though still quite impressive. And it wasn't just large for the sake of being large. There was a lot of things to find in it, like crystal bugs that I'm not sure if were alive or not, or hunt down Poes, or find minigames to play, and a few other things. Very much being a bigger and more detailed version of what was in Ocarina of Time, which I think was completely intentional. As mentioned earlier, this game is unfortunately not yet available on Switch, and there's no clear reason as to why that actually is, as an HD version of Twilight Princess existed for the Wii U, and that is in fact the footage you're seeing here, and the Switch library is full of ports from the Wii U. So much so that there are very few titles that are still exclusive to the Wii U, technically speaking. And it's not from a lack of interest from the fanbase either, as virtually every Nintendo Direct has people speculating on if Twilight Princess and Wind Waker will finally be announced for the Switch. Now, of course, it is possible that at this late point in the Switch's life cycle, they may be saving it for the next console, the Switch 2, or Super Switch, or Switch 64, or whatever they end up calling it. But I do think it is a foregone conclusion that this is not a game that's going to remain trapped forever. Nintendo knows that there's far too much money to be made in re-releasing games. In fact, it's a huge part of their business model these days. But for the time being, it seems all we can do is wait for that announcement to happen. Please do subscribe, comment, like, and tell your friends.